Okay, parenting and linking, if you're following along, thank you very much for watching this series on the timeline. This is one of the later videos of it, but this one is super important. You're going to use this one a ton. So I have these 4 hexagons on my timeline and in my composition. Let's say hypothetically I wanted to have them orbit or circle around each other. So if I were to, like, let's say hypothetically rotate one of them, this bottom one, I could just rotate it, but I wanted to rotate around the center. So what I could do is I could reveal the position properties and then make a keyframe and then go forward like a second and then move it to this guy and then get it to sync up and then go forward another second and then get it to this guy. But that's going to take too long because I have to do for all of them, and it's still not a complete circle either. Even with easing and whatnot, it's not going to be perfect. Another way I could do that is I could set my anchor point by hitting Y on my keyboard to my pan behind tool, and then bring the anchor point to the center, and then I could rotate it. But then again, I have to do that for all of them. So let's just undo that. We're going to do something called make a null object. And a null is basically creating like a layer that has no color or video or audio information. It just like holds properties. So we'll go to layer, new, null object, and we'll select all of our shape layers. And we have this little parent and link column right here. We can click and drag and put it on the null. We'll hit enter with the null selected, and we'll call this shape controller. And what's cool about this shape controller that we just made, the null object, is we can move this around. And it's gonna bring its children with them. It's like, hey, mom, what do I do? And the mom is like, come this way, or this way, or the mom can be like, I wanna spin. So you hit the stopwatch button and you go forward in time to like 3 seconds, and then you just crank that number up and you just go like this. Okay, so that is the parenting and linking tool as a joke, but really you'll use this all the time, because what you can do now is you can change the way in which a lot of these properties will interact or control a bunch of layers with just one object. So with this shape controller, I can change the size of it and it will bring the children with it. So let's say I wanted to have it start here, move it over, and then go over there. Maybe add a rotation keyframe by just going to 1. And then select those keyframes, hit F9 on your keyboard and ease them. So you can do some pretty cool stuff with it. Another thing you can do with parenting and linking is you can click on this drop down menu and select layers individually, or you can go through and be like, all right, I don't want you to look at this, your mom anymore, or your parent anymore, and it'll just stay there where it was. Another cool thing that I do with null objects and a bunch of layers is you can actually move things all at once and then delete the null, and it will move wherever, stay wherever you moved it, basically. So how does that work? Well, I have this little animation of that shape layer that we just did, and let's say hypothetically I wanted to just keep them in the same spot, or a client is like, I like these hexagons, but I want them on the left side of the frame, or I want them on the right side of the frame instead of the left side of the frame. So what I can do, let's just delete that. I have these shape layers. Let's just make a new Control-Alt-Shift-Y to make a new null object. We'll select these shape layers and we'll hit P on the keyboard to notice their position, and then we'll link them here, and it will change the position to be relative to the null object. Now the null object that we just made starts at the center of the composition, so relative to the null, that's where the shape layers are going to live. So if we set this to like 0, 0, for example, it's going to be exactly on that point. Let's just undo that because we're just going to go back to our original point where we were moving this null so that the shapes are on the right side of the frame, so right there. And then if we delete those, now they're living on this side. Pretty cool, right? And then, let's say hypothetically, these had some like animation. So let's just say, bring this back to where it was. Let's just say undo everything really quick. Go back to when we had that null right in the center. Let's just center that null in the composition, and we can see that these shape layers are at a very specific position. So let's just make a keyframe at frame 0, and then we'll move that forward to like 1 second. Well, right click on the position and separate dimensions so we can set everything to 0 and 0 for both. So now they're gonna sort of like scale up, and then if we wanted to rotate these, let's say -180, and then to positive 0, it's 0, and then set the scale back up to 100 here, and then at frame 1, start it at 60, and then for the shape layers, hit S to reveal our scale property. We'll hit 0 on our keyboard, and then move it back to 100. And then hit R on our keyboard, and we'll set these to be 0 there, and then we'll set that to -360. And then we'll select everything by hitting Control A, and then hit U on our keyboard, and we will ease them. We'll go to our graph editor, and because we're dealing with so many different properties with so many different values, I'm going to recommend using the value graph as well, or the speed graph, just so it's a little bit. I know I kind of sped through this part, but basically what I'm trying to say is you can get some cool animations when you have children link to their parents and then do some cool things with both of the layers. So you get some cool animation like that. And then you can be like, okay, now you're here. Boop. Boo. Value graph. Oh god. Nope. Separate dimensions. Have you linger there. Alright, so sorry, I kind of got carried away. But basically, you can do some cool things with parenting and linking and whatever else. Because we have these shapes parented and linked to the null, you can move things around. Think of it like a Rube Goldberg machine or whatever they're called, or Legos or whatever else. Just like connect the things and then swing the things and move the things. You can do some cool stuff. I hope you learned something from this one. If I made things too complicated, feel free to roast me in the comments, but thank you for watching. Alright, that's today's quick tip. I hope you learned something. If you did, let me know in the comment section down below. Like if you learned something, and if you need more help, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. Again, my name is John Jags. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch my face because you're not getting it back, so I hope it was worth it. And I will leave you with this. Eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. You will make some gains, I promise. Alright, goodbye. Goodbye. Where's my lens cap? Bye. Put the place up.